And that's.
Okay, we're back recording. So why don't you tell that story again about the,
Well, you know,
Why don't
first,
you-
first let me say one thing. I think we as Americans are unique in a lot of ways. We have that extra sense, and that's that sense of humor, you know? And it doesn't matter how hard or how long or how bad they kick the daylights out of us, we could get satisfaction out of ridiculing them. If we ran out of things to ridicule the enemy about, we could ridicule one another, because you had to laugh. You
Yeah.
had to
Oh,
laugh to
sure.
maintain your sanity. And I'll give you a couple of, there was one guy who was shot down in 1965. I was shot down, you know, he was like February 1965, right at the beginning. He had been there all this time. Pretty much semi-solid confinement. And they kept offering him a letter from his wife during those years if he would write favorable propaganda for them or make a confession, they'd do something for them and they would give him the letter. They would give him that letter. Well, he wouldn't do it. And I won't use the language we might, but he wouldn't do that. So finally, he's given the letter, and in that letter is a picture of his wife. And he sees that picture of his wife in a mini skirt. And this guy went ballistic. He thought she had become a streetwalker. We didn't know what kind of styles of clothing, you know,
Oh, yeah.
was going on here in the
Yeah,
United
that's
States.
right.
Finally, thank God, about 2-3 weeks later, the air crew got shot down, and we finally convinced this guy, no, your wife's not a streetwalker. It's just the style of the clothing, you know what I mean? And,
That's something I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about that.
yeah, oh. and
5 years, a long time.
And I lived with this guy, Chuck Tyler, I'll never forget him. And this guy, after about 4 years, says, I've had enough. And we said, what do you mean you've had enough? He says, I am not gonna get up and bow anymore. I mean, we had, every time you heard the keys rattle or they're gonna open the door, you had to get up and go to the door. And then when that door opened, even a guard, doesn't matter who it is, you gotta bow. I've had a lot of people, I wouldn't bow. I'm gonna tell you what, you would have bowed. You're either gonna bow or you're gonna die. Those would be your two choices. Because they teach you that right as soon as you got to the prison there in Hanoi. And he says, I'm not gonna bow anyway. I said, Charlie, they're gonna hurt you bad. He goes, I know. Sure as the world. 1 hour, the guard, we hear the keys rattle, we get up, go to the door. Chuck Tyler sitting on his bunk, he ain't good. The guard opens that door, looks at us, looks at him. Get up here and bow. Finally grabbed him, took him outside, locked the door, beat the daylights out of him. A little bit later, door opens, throw him back in. He's all bruised, bleeding, nose is bleeding. Next day, same routine. About the third time, they said, Charlie, they're gonna kill you. He says, yeah, I know, buddy. I says, you know what? Did you see how I really get under their skin? You need to laugh. I go, Charlie, you're trying to commit suicide. And after a while, they wouldn't touch him, wouldn't bother. They said he was mentally imbalanced. He got by with it. He got through that. But what I was going to tell you is that, yeah, after I hit the 16th year of my military career, while I'm sitting there in the clink in North Vietnam, I decided that I now was allowed to write a letter home, maybe once every 6 months or so. And I was, in my own mind, wondering if I was promoted to lieutenant colonel along with my peers on the 16th year. So if I wrote that letter home, I think of the total years I was there, which was almost 5.5 years, I think I wrote 4, maybe 5 letters total during that period of time. So I know if I ask in a letter saying, hey, wife, if I've been promoted to lieutenant colonel, that's just gonna get wadded up in the trash, it's gonna go. And, so I wrote a letter home and I said, dear, I know you just celebrated 16 years as a hairdresser, and I was just curious, did you tint your hair silver or is it still like gold color? Basically, that's the end of the conversation. Well, she gets the letter back here in the States. Probably takes a couple, 3 months to get it through the systems. And, well, she comes to the conclusion I've lost my marbles. I'm mentally now unstable. So she calls her Air Force representative, a casualty assistance officer, who was always available day and night. She could call him anytime. She calls him up and tells him about me, that I lost my mind. And he said, well, why do you think that? And she said, well, I got this letter from him, and it wants to know, it talks about me being a hairdresser. I was never a hairdresser in my whole life. The guy says, this captain goes, well, read the letter to me. So she reads the letter. Have you tinted your hair silver or is it still that gold color? And he goes, says to my wife, he says, nothing matter with her mind. Nothing matter with his mind. He wants to know if he got promoted. Silver being the lieutenant colonel, gold being the major.
Yeah.
And so it took about a year maybe. I finally got a letter back, and in that letter she said that she had tinted her hair silver and was living higher off the hog or something to that effect, which was sort of comical.
By the way, how did you get that nickname Digger?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, there was a radio program back then. It was called The Life of Riley.
William Bendix?
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. And the guy who was the mortician on there was, they called him Digger. His name was Odell, and they called him Digger, and because he was a mortician. And he had cliches like, I guess I'll be shoveling along,
Yeah.
the last man to let you down.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I had a younger brother and an older brother, and I end up with a nickname. If my wife ever calls me Digger or Don, I know I'm in trouble, because she always calls me Digger, always has.
Now,
You know, let me just say one thing about these confessions, okay? There were those of us who signed them, and there were those of us who didn't sign them. We never ever criticized one another as to whether you signed that statement that you were a war criminal. And I based that feeling, and we did. Everybody has a different threshold for pain.
sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, you might be able to take 12 hours of torture. That person may take 24 hours, and this person may take 6. And that person there will take it from now ever. But he's not here anymore, because a lot of them got tortured to the point they couldn't recover from it,
Mhm.
because we got no medical care, no medical assistance. So we never ever criticized one another. I just like to make a point out of that. I think it's important. Hey, everybody has a different threshold for pain.
I'm sure. And when you describe some of the torture, makes somebody listening to that bring that to consciousness and say, how much of that could I take?
Boy, I don't know what you won't know, but to kneel on a cobblestone floor for 6 to 8 hours and never get up, that in itself is almost overly demanding. I mean, I can remember the first 3-4 days after I was captured and taken to prison in Hanoi. What few moments you may get to at night to lay on the floor, and they didn't give you a tent yet. They wanted to make you suffer. your hands are tied behind your back, and you are absolutely being eat up with the mosquitoes. Unbelievable. You're covered with them, and you just gotta lay there and endure them. I mean, just something that meager.
Yeah.
I mean, they could turn that in.
Yeah,
But they had different methods of torture that, like I say, were medieval in nature. They had what we called the Suitcase Act. I mean, you want to talk about something persuasive. You sit you on the floor, your hands are tied behind your back, and your legs are straight out, and they put pluggases around your ankles, and they put a steel bar through there. And then they tie a rope on your hands, bring it over this shoulder, go underneath that steel bar, come back up over this shoulder, back to your wrists there, and just start pulling. I mean, next thing you know, your head is between your legs. I mean, and well, they do it long enough, you go into, not uncommon, you go into a state of unconsciousness. Because what they're doing is collapsing your diaphragm,
Yeah.
you know, because when your head ends up down here between your legs, you
Yeah.
don't know where to expand the
right,
diaphragm. So therefore, you know, you lack the oxygen and you pass out, you go into an unconscious state. And you never know how long you're out.
yeah,
And they did just, I don't know, just to me, cruel thing. I mean, one of their favorites is cup their hand, you know, and hit you on the ear, bust your eardrum, you know. And it just, very, very brutal people. I only ever come across one who had some compassion for us, okay? And he was a night guard. He was on at night, and at the end of our cell there was some wooden shutters that he would open at night and stand there and look at us. And then eventually he could speak a little bit of English. And he told us he came from South Vietnam to North Vietnam when they opened that up. Hey, all those who want to live under communism go that way, and you who want to be a democracy or whatever, you go that way. And he was very curious about our way of life, what we had, material things and that kind of thing. And he actually tried to be friendly, and if he happened to be present when you were being tortured over something, you can tell that it bothered him. I mean, but he couldn't say nothing. He'd be dead, you know. But that's the only person that I ever came across that seemed to have some compassion for us. Pardon me. You know, I've done a lot of speaking since I've been home. I quit counting at 1,500. When I first got home, then I started getting these phone calls like service clubs, Lions Club calls, come and speak to us, you know. No. I just didn't want to go back through it. And then very shortly, I got one notice through our organization, one of the guys with us committed suicide. All over his family, including his wife, who were rather active in the anti-war movement here in the States. And I guess he couldn't handle that. Committed suicide. Then another couple of weeks, another guy drove his car into a abutment in California at 120 miles an hour, and that had to be, no doubt it was suicide. So I started thinking about this, you know. Maybe if I can go out and talk about this, get it off my chest, maybe I won't have a hang up with it. So then I started going out and doing speeches, lunches, dinner, you know, whatever. And I'm proud to say and happy to say that I never ever had a hang up with it. And you know, any kind of a mental problem. Well, for quite a while, you know, I have my nightmares, but nothing that I could even conceive as being suicidal in nature. You know what I mean? And one of my favorite closings, I did a lot of schools, high schools, mainly high school, junior high. And when I would finish, I would say, let me tell you something. We have a lot of freedoms in this country, you're aware of. We have a lot of material things. I haven't been to every country in the world, but I've been to quite a few of them, and none of them have what we have here in the United States. But if you should ever find a country that has the things that we have, the freedoms, the material things, you call me. But you know what? I'm not going to lay awake at night waiting for your phone call, because it's never going to happen, period. That's it. Those kids, I think, really respected that, you know, and of course, you know, when you think about during the Vietnam War, you know, a lot of, even the kids today don't really know what it was, because, you know, it was sort of semi-secret, you might say, you know, and not really in the history books. And, you know, it's like when we tried to get Jane Fonda tried over her actions and traitor. I think the government didn't do it, didn't want to do it, because they wanted the Vietnam War or conflict, whatever you wish to call it, to die on the vine. We had enough problems with this in our society and unrest and all that. They just didn't want to rejuvenate that by going through that, and decided to just drop the whole thing. And we were not happy with it. And I never lived with John McCain, and he was shot down a week after I was. He was a Navy pilot, but I tell you, John McCain took a lot of brutality.
Yeah.
And especially when it wasn't very long, they found out his dad was the commander-in-chief of PACAF fleet out there off their coast. And,
Yeah, he was a big shot in the
he
Navy.
was a 4-star admiral.
And you can still see the results of
Oh, yeah, you see his
with
arm
him.
still, yeah, they beat him up pretty good. And, you know, and another thing I give him, I admire him for is, after about 3, maybe 4 years, they came to him and tried to release him early. They wanted him to let him go for the favorable propaganda out of it. And John said, "Yep, I'll go when it's my turn." He could have skated. He didn't do it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
On the lighter side, why don't you share with us, I thought this was kind of clever.
Oh, a good friend of mine who was a federal judge here in Michigan.
One of our vet candidates that we're gonna get as soon as he gets back from Florida.
Yeah. And they did at the local restaurant by my home, they did a 30-year celebration of my release. And this federal judge came to it, which I've known him for years, and said that he had been contacted by the Department of Defense regarding the monies I owed on that 105 that I didn't bring back. So as you can see, it's pretty well done. It's got the Department of Defense. I mean, it looks like the real McCoy, a picture of the 105. Whoop.
Can you pick that up?
Yeah. And why don't you read it to us?
I'll read it. It says, Lieutenant Colonel retired Donald Odell, 31810 North River Road, Harrison Township, Michigan, 48045. Dear Lieutenant Colonel retired Odell, this letter is to inform you that you are assessed with the cost of replacing the F-105 Thunder Chief fighter jet aircraft that was checked out to you and never returned. Said aircraft was valued at $17,532,642.98. And the last little paragraph says, you have 10 years to pay the costs that you are assessed. Your first monthly payment is due April 1st, 2003. If you have already paid for said aircraft, please disregard this notice. that, I mean, it looks like the real McCoy. We got a lot of laughs on that.
So, let's go back a second. You were released, and you knew that you were being released finally when they put you on the trucks
Mhm.
and they took you off on the plane.
Yep.
So, okay, now that's leaving Vietnam. You went to the Philippines. What happened after that? I mean,
Well,
the
we went to the Philippines. The first stop was to do a cursory medical exam on you to see if you were fit to keep going to the United States. Well, when I got to the Philippines, I'd come out of there with bronchopneumonia, so I got stuck there a couple extra days, and all my fellow cellmates came home, and I was there by myself, which was rather disheartening. I did not want to get delayed, but I had a severe high temperature. So then a few days later, they got it down, and I said to the doctor there in the Philippines, I said, when are you going to let me go? And he says, well, when you're well enough to travel. I said, I'm well enough to travel. So there was another group that came out, that I think some of those prisoners were out of South Vietnam, not out of North. So I came back with him, and the doctor says, hey, I'll make you a litter cage, you get in the bed, and you don't get out till you get there. I said, I'm in, I agree. And, so I left Philippines, did a fueling stop in Hawaii.
now did your family know that you were out,
Oh yeah.
and you had talked to them on the phone?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
as soon as I got into the Philippines, they had telephone bank set up, and I called. Yep. And then I came into Travis in California, then flew from Travis to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at Dayton, Ohio. And I was the only one that arrived there because it was my regional hospital from the area where I lived, you know. But my immediate family were all there, and they were housed there, and my parents were there, and this gentleman who I had been stationed at Selfridge for quite a few years with, Ed Jones was his name. He was assigned to me as my escort, and took care of all my needs or whatever, medically and all that kind of stuff. Was really like a chaperone to it. And so it was a great day. Yep.
You spoke to me at one time, I was either at your house or when we were out for coffee, and I asked you about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the youngest one couldn't have been a couple months old when you,
Yeah,
so he never even knew you for
No,
5 years.
no.
And obviously the other kids are not
He
that
was-
much older.
Yeah, he was born December 4th, 1966, and I left in February of 67.
So how did you manage to stay close enough so that these kids knew they had a father? I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
and you spoke
I-
about what Shirley did to
Yeah,
help.
I give her a lot of credit, even though she's deceased now. She kept me in the limelight of decision making. You know, it was always, do you think your dad would want you to do this? Do you think your dad would do it this way? Do you think your dad would do this? I mean, I was always in that decision making. So when I came back, you know, one thing they cautioned us, the psychiatrist, we had to go through the psychiatry and all that. Said, just remember, when you get home, you know, you haven't been a father, so you be very careful how you handle your wife. I mean, it was, you know.
Sure.
But when I got home, it was like I was gone a couple days, maybe.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, those kids knew exactly who I was and the right.
Give
and
Shirley a lot of
and-
credit for that,
yes,
for sure.
Oh, yeah, yep.
For
she
sure.
Did a heck of a job with the children, and never ever did I have a problem with them. Yep.
Hmm.
So it was a great tribute to
Can you-
Shirley.
point your camera over to the picture board,
Sure.
and Digger, would you kind of walk us through the pictures?
You want me to stand up over there?
No, you don't need to.
Okay, the one up on the left, in uniform on the top left,
What time period was that?
that was June of 1967. That was taken at McConnell Air Force Base, just before I left to go to Thailand to fly up against North Vietnam.
And then keep in mind, you came back in
Yeah, I came back on
73,
73, yeah.
72?
April 73.
So you were gone for the time that you were a POW, but you were also gone prior to that
Oh,
time.
yeah.
You were stationed in Thailand.
So basically, I left home in February of 1967, and I got home in April of 73.
Mhm.
So you're talking almost 7 years total.
Okay, the
A
next
very
one,
momentous time in their history. There was an
Yeah.
awful lot going on here
Oh,
during
absolutely.
that time.
Yeah. The next one is me standing, it was taken of the, about 2 weeks before I was shot down at Korat Air Base, Thailand, standing in front of my F-105 prior to a mission.
okay,
And the one to the right of that is my standing back on my younger days. That's an F-86D at Landstuhl Air Base in Germany. And then these other, just different maps of North Vietnam, a little bit of
okay, the first map is North Vietnam,
Yeah, the top
and
one.
right below it is Thailand,
Yeah.
and
Is that the one
you
up-
may not be able to see the star, but where the star was is Karat, where he was
Ground
stationed.
Air Base, yeah. And the one on the right was a few years after I was back, when I was working at Selfridge Air National Guard Base here in Mount Clemens as Director of Public Affairs.
Which one is that?
So the one up on the top right.
Far right.
Okay.
And the bottom one here says air crew only. That's the day I arrived back here after my release, which was April 7th, on Delta Airlines from Dayton, Ohio to Detroit. And before I didn't get off the airplane. They told me to stay on the airplane. And I thought that was right. I was on a double flight. Don't get off the airplane, be the last one off. So I trying to figure out what's going on here. You know, it's a Detroit Metropolitan Airport. Well, when I finally got off, there was a band there from my high school and all kinds of people. Oh, yeah.
Boy,
Yeah, and that's the fastest trip I ever did from Detroit to Mount Clemens. And
well, they had you in a limousine,
they had me in a state trooper car, about 4 of them.
yeah,
We were running 80, 85 mile an hour down through there.
Down 94?
Yep.
geez, when you told me that, I thought, geez, was 94 even there?
Yeah, it was there, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
The one down at the bottom is my wife Susie and the kids. Just before I left, I was at Thanksgiving. I got my assignment just right after that, I got my assignment to the F-105 to go to Thailand. And that book over there is the Republic F-105 aircraft that I flew over there, and it's sort of a documentary of that airplane.
Don't forget your meeting with Mr. Bush.
Oh, yeah, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, the one, and the kids and my wife, that's when I came, the second one down on the left side.
Yeah.
You can see I lost a little weight in that one. That was at Wright-Patterson Hospital.
So that's your first meeting with your family
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
after being released, and
Now look at the age and count back 5.5
yeah,
years.
yeah.
You can,
And then the one just to the right of that is my meeting President Bush when he came in, senior, because I was Director of Public Affairs for the base.
where was that meeting?
At Selfridge.
Oh, at
Yeah,
Selfridge.
he landed there at Selfridge in his airplane.
that was
Oh, that's
probably when he was president, probably, and
Oh, yeah.
in not when he was vice president.
No, he was
This
president.
would have
Probably
been
80,
after you returned.
Yeah,
yeah.
And it was a period of what, 10 years where you were
I was,
public relations?
I was about 15 and a half years.
15.
At Selfridge, so. But, you know, as I say, if I had my life to do all over again, I'd be a fighter pilot. no doubt in my mind, I would have no other ambition. I remember when I first started out, I thought, I ought to be paying the government to let me fly this super airplane. You know? I mean, I
Well,
just
you know,
enjoyed it. I wouldn't volunteer for NI, don't
it's not hard to
misunderstand.
understand that. You're a victim of the time,
Yep,
a victim of circumstances. You can separate the flight excitement and the fighter pilot and stuff, but you move it into a different time frame and
yep,
things would have been different.
been different, but. yeah,
And even perhaps going through what you went through, you said this to me once too. I learned a lot
Oh, yeah.
while I was there. I learned how to be more
Easier going, let's say, maybe, and more appreciative of the
appreciative.
people
Yeah, I
around
thought
you.
that was quite
Yep.
profound to hear you.
Yeah.
It was the other day when you told me that. I thought that's, going
Before
through a
this,
humbling
you know.
experience like that has a way of changing people.
Yeah, because I look back on my life and there's probably a lot of people that would have liked to have been my friend, but I didn't have time for them. You know what I mean? Just too fast a pace of life and stuff like that. So I'm a lot, or maybe more appreciative of their thinking, their opinion, as opposed to the way I was before that. And,
How was your relationship with your children now? And there's an addition.
yeah, yeah.
You subsequently
It was great.
married Susie, and
Yeah.
you have a
Well,
10-year-old?
Yeah, when I got back, my wife divorced me, and then that was final like 1980, went on forever. And she passed away in 85, and I was single till 97, you know, one of those that said, I'm never gonna do it again, I'll never get married again. And I did, and that's Susie now, and
Sweet little gal. She's
Yeah.
really a charmer.
and now I have a 10-year-old, and
Now,
which
let's
was
see,
not in my retirement plan.
10 years would put you at 67,
Yeah, 66, almost 67 when he was born,
and you were married.
in 97. No, he was born in 2000, excuse me.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was born in 2000. We were married in 1997. But, and my other kids think he's the greatest.
Yeah, I was gonna
He's
get to
just-
that.
Yeah. I go down to the Cruise Inn restaurant, which is only 7 doors from my house, and it's become sort of a joke with all those people down there who all know me. And as I walk in there and they'll say, you know, where's Hunter today? And I'll go, well, his 51-year-old sister's taking care of him today. Then they get a.
51?
Yeah. They get
I was
a
just
kick.
gonna ask, what was the ages of these?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
And
But
you-
you know what? He may keep me younger longer. I think
Oh,
there's
I'm
a
sure
good
they will.
possibility.
And you've still been able to maintain a good relationship with these kids
Oh,
over the years?
absolutely. Oh, I serve constantly.
I know I talked to you one time and your wife Susie told me you were out helping them rebuild or redo the kitchen or
Oh,
something
yeah,
over
yeah.
at one of the
Houses,
houses.
yeah. Well, we've always got along good. Always got along good.
Any other things you'd like to know, Ann?
How did you feel about the changes that had happened in the country? The culture, the style,
Well.
when you were there, had there even been the riots in Detroit?
No, that
67.
happened just before I left, right? in
Okay.
Selfridge.
Okay, so all the changes in Detroit
Yeah.
and everything else that was going on.
I think the biggest shocker to us was, for all of us when we got out of there, and found out the wide use of narcotics in young
Drugs.
kids.
Mhm.
That was just, we just couldn't figure out how could it happen? You know, how could we let that happen? That was the biggest.
And so much of it was stuff that was being brought over from Southeast
Yeah,
Asia.
back then, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, come from all the way, Colombia, Mexico, all over, but that was probably the biggest shocker that we had. I remember sitting in a cell block with this Chuck, and one day, not long before we were released, and I said to him, you know, Chuck, I only have one concern about our release. And he goes, what's that? I go, I pray that those miniskirts don't go out of style. And then we were talking about it, I said, you know, Charlie, you know, we don't have a lot of control. We do have some control over our mental being, but as long as we're concerned about the style of the miniskirt, then we're mentally healthy.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you've lost your marbles, so have I, so who are you to say I'm not mentally
Right.
right, and who am I to say you are? You know what I mean? It'd be like the preacher preaching to the choir, you know? So, but I know as long as we're worried about that going out of style, we gotta be okay mentally. But, yeah, that was the biggest, you know, the probably little things sometimes that, and finally, after I got to Ray Patterson, within a few days, they finally let me drive a car. It was like, the people, it was almost like you'd never driven a car before. I said, wait a minute. I'm not gonna have any trouble driving a car. I mean, like, you know, growing up as a kid, once you learn how to ride that bicycle, you can go right back anytime and get on that bicycle. But the first thing I noticed when I climbed in that rental car, the steering wheel was smaller.
Mhm. Well, there
And,
must have
that
been,
stuck in my mind.
must have been things on the dashboard you had
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
before
oh,
too.
yeah, but that was the biggest thing. First thing I know was that steering wheel's smaller now.
Was there, I mean, I'm sure you kept in touch with the guys that you were in the prison with.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of variation on how they reacted to coming home? Did some of them have, I know you mentioned a couple who committed suicide or whatever, but was there a variety of reactions or?
I don't think so. Of course, I was sort of out here in that beaten path. There was two others from Michigan. One was an Army helicopter out of South Vietnam out of Warren. But, you know, at the reunions I've gone to, it seemed like we all had, you know, basically the same kind of experience. We had three whose wives been told they were killed in action.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
all three were remarried. And so that was a little bit of a problem, them coming back. All three of them chose to let her stay with the present husband, as I recall. And but I think we pretty much all, I'm sure we were all much more appreciative of life and probably more giving of ourselves now to different things. Like I Special Olympics Michigan for the handicap. I just finished my 29th year going on a snowmobile ride for a week. And, you know, if somebody would have told me 29 years ago, you're going to do this every year for a week up in the snow, you know.
Is that the
raising money.
Wirtz as
Yeah.
Warriors?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
Warriors, And,
Dick Wirtz?
yeah, so we just finished 29 years.
Did most of them stay in the military?
No, yeah, quite a few of them did. Those that were able, quite a few went to the airlines. A few of us, you know, eventually were retired with disability because, you know, we weren't fit worldwide duty.
What was that word they called it?
Unfit worldwide duty with zero compensation for the injuries.
Whatever the heck that means.
Yeah, I ended up suing the one, hands down.
So you,
Wait a
you
minute.
did retire.
After all you went through,
Mm-hmm.
and the cracked vertebrae and everything else, they gave you a disability retirement and no money?
Mm-hmm. That's what they said. Unfit worldwide duty with zero compensation for injuries. And, well, as I understand it, what happened during because the medical people told me at Ray Patterson, you don't have to worry about nothing. I mean, whatever your problem is, it's going to be taken care of. I mean, we're told to handle it very gingerly and righteous. So, but there was I've been told, how much is fact, how much is fiction, I don't know, but the way it was told to me, I believe it, a 3-star general over in South Vietnam, before South Vietnam fell, and that's, of course, just prior to our release. He was on flying status, I mean, getting flight pay, and he retires coming back, you know, and with 100% disability. Well, when Congress got a hold of that, a lot of heads rolled in the medical field. I mean, how can you go from flying airplanes to 100% disability in 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is? And that put the scare into the medical people. And
Well, I think you ran into another situation where there were circumstances involved that,
yeah, that created that problem.
yeah,
Because the attorney I had, and of course, I didn't know anybody in San Antonio, but I got a good attorney. But I had a lot of the other PLWs were having the same problem, would call me and get his phone number.
but subsequently you went back to South Region and spent another 15
Yeah,
years
no, but as a civilian,
as a civilian.
I was civil service. To me, the way, at the time, which I argued with the Air Force, I argued with my senator, federal senator, the way the disability system should work is, let's say you've been subjected to this, 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 and this. But if you can work a 40-hour work week, that's put in the bands, okay, you know what I mean? Set aside. Now, later on in life, when you have a problem, as a result of this, 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 and this, then that should be instated, okay? That's the way I think of it, look at it. But when I check with the Air Force, I check with my senator, if you don't get it, when you get out, then you can't get it. The only way you can get it, now you gotta go to the claims court in Washington DC, which is probably gonna cost you $20,000 to $25,000 to go through that court. And then you may not even get it. So, to me, that's not the way it should work, but that's just the way it is. You know, hey, if I can work a 40-hour work week, they should be delayed. Later in life, I start having problems due to my injuries or medical problems directly related to it, then it would be instated. You can't do that. So, the way it is. But, like I say though, Dave, there's no such thing as a bad day anymore. I mean, some days are better than others, but there is no such thing as a bad day. That's
Good for you. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, Hunter killed his first deer December 23rd. He loves to
Really?
fish. Oh, yeah. I think I was 16 before I ever shooted.
The kid's only 10 years old.
I know. Yeah.
He shouldn't be able to swat flies.
No, he's a diehard fisherman in Hunter.
Wow.
We won the tournament over in Canada last year. He was on my team.
He's not the only one.
Yeah, I'm a fisherman. That's down in Costa Rica. Year before last. I go every year. Primarily for marlin and sailfish, but that's a big Dorado.
And then you have a,
Yeah, there's a picture of my team last year.
you have a fairly good group of people
I
that go down there with
Oh,
you.
yeah, we have a ball. We really have a good.
You go to Costa Rica for what, a week?
Yeah, we're 6 days. Day
6?
down, fish 4 days. Well, you fish day off a day, fish day off a day, and come back.
And then you have another group that you go down to the Keys
Keys,
and fish.
Yeah. And I fish up here, tournaments over out of Uriel. In fact, we won first place over there 2 years in a row now. Last year, Hunter, my 10-year-old, was on our team.
So the family comes with you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Great.
But no, none of my family have ever been on the Costa Rican trip. It gets a little expensive for them. But I go up and down North Shore Road, and especially I pick up those empty pop cans. Pay no way. So if you got any ability, you tell everybody I've got from Hall Road to 16 Mile Road, that's my territory.
Well, thank you, Digger. I appreciate. It seems that every time I had a chance to chat with you, I found out a lot more. This is a lot easier
Yeah.
doing the interviews when you've got a lot of the background. Oh, by the way, Digger was, I did an interview for Maury Vincent. Now this goes way back,
Way back
to
when I
the
first came home.
middle 70s. And Maury Vincent did a 6-day
5 or 6 days.
interview that appeared in the paper consecutive,
Daily, yeah,
and Digger shared them with me. Unfortunately, they're
big newspaper.
rolled up, but when you open them up, it was not something I could bring here to copy. But I did go through them all and read them, so I gotta get those back to you.
What paper was it?
Macomb Daily,
Home Daily. They ran 5 or 6
May
commentary.
the
at
21st through the 29th or
night.
28th.
You got better memory than I got.
Yeah,
Of
By telling them. the
of what
story.
year?
1973. Yeah.
73. Probably get it from the archives. I wonder if they're online.
I don't know, somebody would probably have it.
I should check on that, now that I think about it, you're right, I could probably, but they were too clumsy even
Yeah,
to
big news, full
bring
size.
them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're the.
But they were nice.
They're what they call the silver plate, it isn't the actual print, so it doesn't deteriorate.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
glossy and,
Glossy, it's.
Yeah, yeah, on.
And it can be rolled
archival
up.
kind of paper.
yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you very
My
much.
pleasure.
And as I continue to remind you, this is a heavily compensated group.
Yeah.
And the only way we're gonna find some more diggers is you helping us.
Yeah.
We don't have the money to do it, we're anxiously looking for an opportunity to get a trip to go interview somebody.
Someone do something.
If we could ever do that, it would be kinda neat.
Yeah, yeah.